Hello and welcome to this online session of the ICA International Conference. I am Arighna Mitra, and today I will be presenting on the topic Integrating Security with Design of Educational Campuses. I will begin by talking about the need for forethought and what are educational campuses and what influences our perception of safety. I will then use a comparative analysis of two campuses to present you with actionable advice and recommendations applicable at what I called different lines of defense. We will also look at dark side problems resulting from CPTED in campuses. Finally, we will use a rudimentary audit to come up with safety and security measures metrics which can drive this discussion further. Safety and security must turn into a design objective from the start. Architects have to sacrifice much more of a building's openness in retrofitting for security compared to if the building had been designed for security from the outset. Protection and operating expenses are greater than they need to be because of lack of forethought in the design phase. A 2016 study says that for prospective students, campus safety is the fourth most influential factor when choosing a new campus. Colleges in the medieval era were grouped together in quadrangles, following the traditional cloistered monastery layout, providing defense against foreign invaders and disgruntled townspeople. It was also resourceful use of the limited land available to them. Towards the turn of the 17th century, new worldviews, new public health attitudes, and a blatant rejection of monastic traditions led to Cambridge to design the buildings in a three-sided courtyard configuration. American colleges that were set up around this time were influenced by the Scottish colleges, which serviced different regions. For example, Harvard. Between 1600s and early 1700s, colleges are seen to have separated buildings set in sprawling open landscape. Their planning reflected a desire to reach out to the community and towns around them. William and Mary and Yale tried to weave their campuses into a city's urban fabric through their planning. In the mid 18th century, Princeton campus was set up. In the 1770s, the word campus was used first to describe such type of layout. It was designed as a college located along one side of a green space. However, today, the word campus has come to denote the grounds of university or college, regardless of whether it has green spaces or not. The sparse arrangement of buildings, as demonstrated at Princeton, symbolizes the distance of the college from the outside world. Campuses function as separate entities while closely observing the outside world. Today, campuses may be of different kinds. You may have a college town. The city is economically benefited from the college as a city, and the city and campus are closely related. The rural campus, the campus is large, open, and away from the city. The urban campus, the campus might be a part of the city's fabric, or the campus is perceived as an isolated entity in a big city. Commuter campuses, where students, faculty, and staff commute to the campus for work and live off campus. Educational campus need not be totally closed off from the public in order to provide students with a safe and secure environment. Openness to promote discussion and collaboration to promote education and research makes it difficult to secure them. In a large open and urban setting, it is easy to penetrate the perimeter and get lost in the crowd. Individuals' perception of safety from crime in an environment is determined by a variety of factors, including personal experience of a place, its physical appearance, and characteristics of the individual. Perception of fear is influenced by sorry, Perception of fear is influenced by prospect, refuge, and entrapment. Other variables include student demographics. Males have a safer perception of safety to various places, considered potentially dangerous in contrast to females. The presence and type of security personnel, the rural or urban setting of the campus. Jane Jacobs observed how people occupy and behave in a space. She stated that in order for a city street to be thriving, it must have three qualities: clear demarcation between public space and private space, ownership of public space by those who would be regarded as natural proprietors of the street, constant users to add eyes on the street and induce people in the buildings to watch the sidewalk. And Oscar Newman, in his book Defensible Space, 1972, focused on the architectural layout of the buildings. Newman outlined three elements to create defensible space: territoriality, creating perceived zones of territorial influences, providing natural surveillance opportunities; image and milieu, designing to influence the perception of a project's uniqueness, isolation, and stigma. We must consider the campus as both a social and physical environment. If we were to consider it only as a physical environment, then target hardening strategies would have been the primary means of alleviating concern. The social environment is often more important in determining the perception of safety than the physical environment. CPTED objectives are to prevent crime through national surveillance, discourage crime by increasing the risk of apprehension of criminals. The architect is key to opening the opportunities inherent in the CPTED approach. Within his competency is the ability to know when an express security concern cannot be fulfilled by a particular design idea and how to lead a design security professional to an alternate idea. For the analysis of spatial configurations, we can turn to space syntax. Tries to explain non-discursive properties of space by showing the way elements should be connected to better understand the perspective of users. It has been used in the past to predict correlation between spatial layouts and crime, traffic flows, etc. Integration analysis shows the cognitive complexity of reaching a street, which is a marker of pedestrian use of the street. In practical world, it shows where people are more likely to end up. Visibility graph analysis is based on the iso-vist analysis of space. It analyzes the urban network as the inter-visibility connection between the buildings. It is possible to do visibility graph analysis on software packages like DeathMap X or VRAF. Of course, technology also plays a crucial role in crime prevention and can help to either secure the users, protect the user, protect the assets, or ensure smooth operations. Electronic security systems are a part of a bigger, more comprehensive physical protection scheme. If used correctly, it can create delay in the event, giving us enough time to respond to the threat. Coming to the analysis of campuses, the choice of campus had to be such that they can be compared on the basis of planning and their context. There had to be a similarity in non-architectural aspects in order to effectively understand the impact of architectural aspects on the security of the campus. The chosen campus also had to be catering to a similar demographic, having similar academic programs, security management. And so IIT Roorkee has a rich history started from 1847 when it was established as Thomson College of Engineering. A typical university layout mixed with mixed land use were adapted as the university continued to expand. Parts of the campus were also open to public, whereas IIT Delhi was established in 1961 and it designed as a closed-off urban campus with separate zones for academic and residential purposes. The two campuses also differ in their context. Let us begin with the case of IIT Roorkee. A semi-structured interview with the campus security officer revealed concerns regarding multiple access points and having public institutions like bank and the post office at the center of the campus. So security officer also said that in new campuses, planning must be done so that all academic buildings are zoned together and all residential and hostel buildings are zoned together. Unstructured interviews reveal more nuances regarding providing security for a campus. While technology has helped with surveillance, things like viewing angles and power backup should be considered. Simple things like distance of toilets and guard posts can also make a big difference to effective surveillance and support. A survey was carried out with over 50 students, faculty, and staff in the campus. They were asked to identify 3 spaces which they perceived as safe and 3 spaces which they perceived as unsafe. Accordingly, this map was prepared from the responses. Location marked in green are perceived safe, and the tonal value reflects the number of responses. Likewise, for perceived unsafe spaces, which are marked in red. This is the integration analysis map for IIT Roorkee prepared using DeathMap X. The streets in warmer tones have higher integration, meaning these are preferred by pedestrians for moving around the campus, and thus will also have higher natural surveillance. Each of the 3 perceived safe and unsafe spaces is analyzed separately. For example, the Thomson building is perceived as most safe. The visibility graph analysis and integration analysis suggest the same. The factors which help in its perception as safe can be summed up as high prospect, low refuge, and low entrapment. CPDD principles of natural surveillance and legibility, territorial reinforcement and operations and management are all fulfilled in this case. For each of these spaces, I also prepared my set of suggestions regarding how to improve the safety and security of these spaces. The library steps are perceived as second most safe space, and the Kotle Bhavan area is perceived as third most safe. At the other end of the spectrum, the street behind the church was perceived as the most unsafe space in the campus. The Vigyan Kunj area was perceived as second most unsafe. The area near the hospital morgue was perceived as third most unsafe. The integration analysis and visibility graph analysis, in addition to presence or absence of CPDD principles, also says the same. Coming to IIT Delhi campus, a similar semi-structured interview was conducted with the concerned security officers at IIT Delhi as well. In addition to his suggestions regarding access visitor management, He made astute observation that the lack of overlapping activities over the day and the lack of social mix hampers natural surveillance. Just like the Roorkee campus, a survey was conducted here as well to identify the perceived safe and unsafe spaces. This map was prepared from the responses. The areas marked in green as perceived as safe, and the areas marked in red as perceived as unsafe. For example, almost the entire stretch of S Avenue, which you see at the south of the map, is perceived as unsafe by many respondents. This is an integration analysis map of IIT Delhi. There's an inconsistency from the real world here, as the analysis says that S Avenue has high integration. The administrative or the main building is perceived as most safe. The library area was second most safe in perception. The boys' hostel area was perceived as third most safe, and all this is consistent with the space syntax analysis. S Avenue is perceived as most unsafe. The path to management department, which cuts across this dense vegetation, is perceived as second most unsafe. The pathways near A block, which are also along dense vegetation, is perceived as third most unsafe. This table shows the elements contributing to the perception of safety for both campuses. We see that the values of prospect, refuge, entrapment are highly consistent with the perception of these respective locations. Finally, a CPTED audit checklist was followed, which evaluated the campus on these 10 parameters: general impressions, lighting, signage, isolation, movement predictors, entrapment sites, escape routes, activity uses, maintenance, territorial definition. And both campuses had very similar results. Now let us turn to the recommendations at four lines of defense: the campus as a whole, the building periphery, at the building level, and at the asset location. So the recommendations at campus level. Mixed zoning, where institutional and public buildings are dispersed throughout the campus between residential buildings, greatly increases natural surveillance and creates opportunities for overlapping activities. Consider providing an optimum land use mix when drawing up the master plan. However, segregated zoning allows for more efficient and economical protection by the security agency. Activities should be placed thoughtfully throughout the campus. Site planners and architects have a crucial role to play in this by creating spaces of activities where the whole community can be engaged. It can also provide public health benefits and the quality of life, improve the quality of life in addition to encouraging social mix. Activity support implies a large variety of activities which will attract people, thereby increasing national surveillance and territoriality. Spaces should be designed to encourage community events and overlapping activities. Having a strong sense of community is linked to lower crime incidents. Walkable neighborhoods have a high sense of community. Entry to the campus should be highly regulated and number of gates minimized. Timings for all gates should be defined. Vehicular and pedestrian traffic has to be segregated at the gates. Active vehicle security barriers to allow the flow of vehicles only after the appropriate entry in the visitor management system. Separate visitor parking locations should be designated near the main gate. Visitors should be encouraged to walk or make use of public transportation. Avoid providing parking in an area being controlled. Additionally, all parking spaces and access to them should be well illuminated. Buildings which require public access should be placed at the outer periphery of the campus, preferably near the main gate and visitor parking. Housing should be placed at the central core of the campus. While cul-de-sacs increase territoriality, they also increase entrapment, increase refuge, and decrease prospect. Thus, they must be only used in area with high national surveillance. Appropriate activity support can also aid in increasing the national surveillance of cul-de-sacs. The placements of licensed premises in a campus master plan should be considered from the aspect of aiding security. They aid national surveillance, create legibility, enforce territoriality. Public utilities like ATMs, bus stops, shops should be carefully placed. Playgrounds and recreation facilities should have clearly defined hours of operations and sight lines from neighboring buildings. Other recommendations at the campus level focus on landscaping, illumination, and site planning. Site layout should define public space and private space by real or symbolic barriers. Real barriers include fences, walls, gates, hedges, and plantings and railings. And symbolic areas could be transition areas using hierarchy of lighting, changes of texture, and levels. While planning for the security for the whole site, you also have to consider interconnected buildings, parking out locations, and planning for operational needs. Landscaping, hard or soft, should be considered an integral part of the design scheme. Arbitrarily placed landscaping can provide concealment for potential intruders. Opportunity for vandalism and graffiti can be reduced through tactically placed planting. Packs of aggressive stray dogs are a significant deterrent to the safety of campus residents. Pedestrians avoid areas with aggressive dogs that dramatically reduces natural surveillance. Stray animals tend to grow in population areas with easy access to food, near trash cans or garbage dumps, fending off kitchen scraps. The focus should be to, on rescuing, rehabilitation, and rehoming these animals. Security posts are built where there is a need for a person to man the static location of a building's perimeter or the critical position for a long period of time. Hence, the design of security posts should enhance the ability of the security guard to perform his duties by being well positioned and well equipped, regardless of the weather or lighting conditions. Coming to recommendations at the building periphery level, these focus on landscaping around buildings, barriers, approach roads, parking, building facades, and architectural features. Street art can be used to make spaces pleasant and lively. Chain link fences should be favored over plank walls higher than 4 feet in order to maintain natural surveillance and avoid a sense of isolation. Resident and visitor parking near building edges should be segregated. It is advisable to maintain a line of sight from which building and from within the building to the parking location. Vehicle access may be restricted in certain parts altogether, and adjoining streets should have unobstructed views to entrances to individual buildings along with appropriate signage. Architectural features on the ground floor, which acts as platform or climbing median, should be avoided. Trees which provide easy access to upper floors should be trimmed or relocated. Sprawling buildings with multiple perimeter indentations allow hiding places, places for ambush of pedestrians, and allow criminals to operate unseen. Unnecessary indentation and protrusion along a building perimeter should be eliminated. At the building level, a population exposure model like the one used by public health professionals can help visualize the vulnerability of target areas. Doors and windows should adhere to CCTRF standards, that is California Crime Technological Reduction Foundation standards. The building should have a minimum two emergency egress routes without conflicting with the need to keep a minimum number of access points for security purposes. Landmark value of individual buildings can be leveraged towards lending legibility to the vicinity. In older campuses, rundown buildings or offices and facilities which are closed down, excellent candidates for adaptive reuse, creating exciting spaces for the community and generating positive activity support. Instead of pushing service areas, servant spaces to isolated parts of the campus, they can be incorporated into the design of the existing building blocks closer to their served spaces. Material finishes should be carefully considered. Bright and vibrant material finishes should be used to create an inviting atmosphere and inspire feelings of safety. Street art can be used for external blind walls. Recommendations at the building interior level, they focus on planning, fenestration locations, material finishes, and signages. If CPTD is implemented excessively without regard for equitable and thoughtful process, it can turn into an oppressive mechanism for social control, creating over fortified communities. Some of the resulting dark side problems are stealthy spaces, areas which are deliberately hidden from general view, slippery spaces, those without visible means of approach, rusty spaces, spaces that cannot be accessed because of obstruction. These may be walls, gates, checkpoints, prickly spaces, uncomfortable spaces due to measures inhibiting activities, jittery spaces, spaces under constant observation, both positive and negative observation. In order to combat dark side problems, avoid creating spaces too far back behind the barriers. They suffer from lack of legibility and natural surveillance. Show restraint in territoriality and legibility. Otherwise, the space feels unwelcoming and detached from the rest of the campus. Avoid the overuse of barbed wires, anti-intrusion barriers, and target hardening measures, which give the building an appearance of a fortress. Organize regular design charrettes at different stages with various stakeholders and potential users, considering the needs of vulnerable groups. Encourage regular dialogue between the campus administration and campus residents. In summary, we can identify clear indicators, their metrics, and desired change over time. This can help guide architects and planners and help integrate security in the design of educational campuses. We have indicators like high prospect, low refuge, low entrapment, increased natural surveillance, increased legibility, favorable space index analysis, increased territorial enforcement, and better operations and management. There is a need for further research into assigning appropriate weightage for the different metrics. Weights of the various elements need to be decided carefully in order to get an accurate picture without any bias. The onus is on the campus administration to provide a safe learning and working environment. Physical measures have to continuously evolve to cater to change security requirements. Mobile applications and smart buildings have come in a big way and are becoming increasingly more accessible. Campuses must leverage existing technologies and be ready to assimilate emerging technologies.